Oh, you caught me getting a glass of water. Morning, everybody. Oh, we don't need to watch that either. Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday, the 24th of June, and welcome to this session of Getting More from Google Analytics. Today, we're going to be talking about having some fun with reports and dashboards. Probably doesn't seem like the most fun thing to do, but honestly, it's pretty fun. So we're super glad to have you with us. We're presenting this today in partnership with Enabling Ideas. The Unmarketing Group is part of the Enabling Ideas partners, and we're part of their Revenue Engine group. And we're super thrilled to be in partnership with Enabling Ideas. They're helping us put this webinar together and put it on. A little bit of housekeeping here. We're interested, we really want you to participate in this webinar with a lot of questions if you want. We have a live chat set up in YouTube here. So if you're logged into your Google account, you can very quickly, easily create a profile and post your questions there as well. And everybody is welcome to post. And if you've got an answer to one of the questions, let's get a great discussion going in the live chat and see if we can all contribute to this as well. So let's dive into the content here. I'm just going to switch to some slides. Give me 1 second. I forgot to bring up my slides. All right. So like I said, my name is Norm Clare, and I'm the founder of the Unmarketing Group, and we love helping companies tell better stories through modern digital channels. And as I mentioned, we're partnered with Enabling Ideas. They're helping us put on this webinar content, and we're specifically part of their revenue engine. Let's talk a little bit about the agenda for today. What are reports in Google Analytics, and why the heck should you care about them? We'll dive into that a little bit and why reports and custom reports are so valuable. We're going to show you how to create a report, what we call a quick report, in under 3 minutes. I don't know if I'll be able to do it under 3 minutes if I'm showing you, but once you get the hang of it, you'll be able to create these quick reports very, very fast and provide people with the metrics and some insights that they need. We'll talk a little bit about custom reports and dashboards and how to create those. And then we'll also chat about report automation. It's a great feature of Google Analytics. It's a way to provide your teams with more insights, but not a lot of extra work for you, which is always good because you wear a lot of hats and you got a lot of things to do. Like I said, at the end of each of these sections, we're going to break and take a little bit of Q&A from this. So let's dive into the first section here. So what are reports and why should you care about them? Well, everything in Google Analytics is a report. Outside the administrative features, that is. When you're viewing all of the website data, the campaign data, all of those kinds of things in Google Analytics, they have actually organized all of those metrics into reports. If you've seen one of my previous webinars, we talked a little bit about the data that Google classifies that data. They really have two elements, things that they measure. They measure something called hits, and those are any sort of actions that are taken on your website. And then the second component of that are dimensions. So they take the hit data and then they're able to dimensionalize that by things like the geography you're coming from, or what browser you're using, or the size of the screen you're on, or for example, what the date was that you visited and created a session on the site. So they take hit data and dimension data and they roll that all up into a metric, and then they provide a whole series of reports along the left-hand side in Google Analytics. So everything you see in Google Analytics is basically a report, and that's why they're so important. The great thing about those reports is that they are they're a story. I mean, they tell a certain story. They tell a sort of a preset story based on roughly the journey your visitor takes about them to get to your website, what they do on your website, and what goals they convert. So a fairly linear story, and it's good, but it may not be the best story for your needs. And so the ability to kind of fine tune those reports and create custom reports really helps you tell your story or your customer story to your stakeholders. So what's important to them. The other good thing about this is that they allow you to share your story. So there's lots of tools within Google Analytics for helping you not just visualize the data and tell that story, but also to share your story with others, and hopefully to create a shared understanding amongst your teams of what's transpiring on your website and your marketing efforts. And using Google Analytics as kind of the basis for the facts of the storytelling. But in that, I want to just touch on something. Most people's brains aren't really wired well for understanding data. Our human brains aren't set up to do that well, and we have a ton of human biases that come into play when we look at things that make interpretation of data very subjective. So I'd caution that the metrics that you present in themselves aren't going to be very insightful, and it's really up to your skills to be able to analyze that data in a meaningful way and draw out from that or interpret that data as part of the storytelling to add context to it. So that is something I always refer to as the so what. You know, I present dashboards to people and they look at them and then their eyes glaze over and they're like, oh, so what? What does that mean? So it's really incumbent on us as analytics professionals to bring out the so what, and ideally sort of what's the next step. So great, this is great data. What do we do with it? How do we action it? Google Analytics doesn't really help with that. That's a skill set that's important for you to have. So let's dive in here. I don't want to sit here and talk all day. I want to show you some cool stuff. So let's for argument's sake, says your boss comes to you and says, I need to know how this month's campaigns are performing compared to last year. I mean, it's a pretty easy and simple request, but I think we can use it to illustrate how you can create a very quick report to solve that in probably under 3 minutes. Okay, so let's just flip over to Google Analytics here. So what I'm using here is Google's merchandise account. This is a demonstration account that Google provides folks like me who want to kind of present information or experiment on a few things. And so going back to that ask, there's a few things I was thinking. If your boss wants to know how this month's campaigns are performing compared to last year, you probably want to start at campaigns and then take a look at what other additional information along with campaigns are going to be important for that. So let's just take a quick look here. As a marketer who does a lot of inbound marketing for teams, one of my favorite reports here is the acquisition report. Acquisition is basically how folks are getting to your website, and it breaks down from all your traffic and channels to going into specific things like organic search, paid campaigns, AdWord campaigns. And you can see down here at the bottom, there's a tab here called campaigns. And since your boss's request was specifically around campaigns and how they're performing, let's use this. There are other ways to get this data, but let's start here. So here we have a campaign report. And where does the campaign report come from? Well, the campaign report is generated from any inbound source where there is a UTM campaign parameter, or where auto tagging has been employed that tells Google, hey, this is part of a campaign. So what you see here in this column are all of the UTM underscore campaign parameters that have been appended to the URL, or in the case of auto tagging, this is the name of the campaign in ads, Google Ads. So we can see here that most of the traffic here has been the data shared program, and then there's these AW campaigns. If you're interested in campaign tagging and tracking, my previous webinar is up on our website, theonmarketinggroup.com, and we explore how to consistently tag and track inbound campaigns and how to set up Google Analytics goals so that you can track the efficacy of your campaigns all the way through to goal conversion. So if you're curious about that and you need more information on that, please check out our website. That's listed right on the homepage under our webinars, and there's a link to the resource page which has the replay video of the webinar and a download of the slides. Feel free to check that out. So that'll tell you where this information is coming from. So the other thing here is the boss asked for, how is this month's? Well, you know what? We're not through the month yet. So why don't we just say we're going to take last month. So I'm just going to go here to the date range, and I'm going to choose last month. And how are they performing compared to last year? Well, that's very interesting because, you know, last year we didn't have COVID-19. So that would be a very interesting comparison to make. So I'll just choose the comparison date range. So date range here last month compared to, I'm going to say previous year. So it'll pull up the same time period in the previous year, and I'll just click apply. By the way, the date range selector is just one of those dimensions. Remember I said there's a combination of hit and dimension. Date range is a dimension, so it's a way of dimensionalizing the hit data that you have, and that's how you select it. Okay, so here's what our campaigns looked at compared. Oh, wow, yeah. That's not great. Hopefully that's not going to get you in trouble. Well, it's not going to get you in trouble. Maybe someone at Google's going to get in trouble for that. But extenuating circumstances. And I think this is where those ability to bring insight into this is really important. So what the data here is telling you is just part of the story. It's up to you to kind of fill in the blanks and create the narrative around that data that's important. So I have campaign data here. I have it based on a year-by-year comparison. That's pretty good. I think that's what the boss asked for. But, you know, I think there's a little bit more story here to tell. Maybe not in this case because I'm familiar with this data, but you may be running multi-channels under these campaigns. You might be using a combination of organic and paid channels through social media, through ad platforms, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, those kinds of things. And so you might have, and you might also be doing outbound email campaigns. So there's like a lot of different channels that are at play within campaigns. So to sort of build the story for your boss, you might say, well, the campaign is interesting, but I think it would also be good to include the channels that are driving the performance within those campaigns. So what I would suggest is you take this sort of out of the box report and you add a little bit of color to it using one of my favorite and almost hidden features in Google Analytics called secondary dimension. I have a video on my YouTube channel about sort of the introduction to Google Analytics and how to navigate the UI. And I talk a little bit about hidden dimension here as one of those ninja features that it's there. Not a ton of people know about it, but I love it. So in addition to campaign, let's add channel. And we've set up, it's just the default channel groupings in here, which are things like advertising, paid search, those kinds of things. And that allows us to just add a bit more color to this. So you can see that all of these campaigns are paid search. And in fact, if you wanted to go right into what the source and medium for those were, instead of channel, you could also choose source, source and medium. And that would give you even, particularly if you're running multi-channel campaigns using different sources and mediums. For example, maybe you have a Google display campaign and a cost per click keyword campaign. If you're using display across Facebook and Google, this would give you this a little more detail in the story of where actually this traffic is coming from. Okay, so I'm getting into the weeds here. You've got a report now, but okay, so someone did something in our campaigns that created this direct/CPM. I call this CRUD. This is either testing data or somebody, went ahead and created a campaign tracking link that had something wrong in it. And I don't really need my boss to be asking me what's this CRUD for. So, just clean this report up a little bit. What I want to do is I want to filter out, basically I want to filter out anything that's not a campaign here. So I want to get rid of this. So I'm direct. So I'm going to go up here and there's a great filtering tool here. I'm going to use advanced and I'm going to say exclude. It's a very simple filter, campaign containing CRUD, which was direct. I think that'll do it. We'll apply that. Did that get rid of my CRUD? Yes. So a nice, clean report. Presumably your boss asks you for this report often. So to save you a step from having to just redo this every single time, I mean, this is technically part of the automation part I was going to do at the end, but let's drop it in here because this makes sense. You've applied some filters, you've got some secondary dimensions going on, you've got a date range comparison. If you want to just save that, you can just click save and you can call this boss campaign report. You can go ahead and you can see that what it's done is it's up here in customizations, it's gone ahead and saved that, basically that fine-tuned or tweaked out of the box report under saved report. So you don't have to create that again. You can just simply go under here, click hit saved reports. There's the boss's campaign report. Click on that and boom. And that's what I mean by 3-minute reports. These are like the hard-boiled egg or the soft-boiled egg of reports. You're not having to create anything custom graphics displays. You're basically fine-tuning an out-of-the-box report. And then you can simply just export that as a PDF and put that in an email, set up a meeting with your boss to explain it, and then go ahead and share that report and answer all their great questions about, why everything is down this period over the last period. So that is a quick report. I'm going to just hop over to the chat here and see if we've got any questions about that so far. No questions so far. Okay, great. Well, I have a question for you. Has anybody, how many people have you, I'm very curious because when I present Google Analytics, secondary dimension is always something that's kind of a revelation to people. So One is I'd love to know where you're from if you're watching this. If you could just pop a message in here and say, "Hey, I'm from Canada," or "I'm from the U.S.," wherever you're from. And secondly, have you used secondary dimensions? Is that something that you commonly use in your practice? And did you know they were there? Is that something you've seen before? And I'm really curious if you've got a tip, a hidden feature that you love to use, that you could share with the rest of the group here. That would be awesome. So what do you like to do? All right, so no questions here yet on that. I'm going to just hop back to the slides, and I'm just going to sort of recap what we just talked about. So what we did was we kind of took the standard campaign report, and we did a little bit of a drill down, initially to look at channels, and then we added source and medium to that. And we really focused on just the campaign data. We got rid of that cruft using the advanced filter tool, which is awesome. The other thing you can do is, it may be that, what matters most for your organization is website engagement or bounce rate. You may have specific goals that you set up in Google Analytics, such as e-commerce transactions, maybe email subscriptions. Those are all important goals, and those goals can be grouped together, of course. You can also sort that report based on the metrics that matter most to you, so that you get a list of the top performing campaigns that are achieving those results. We didn't do that in the example, but it's very easy to do by just clicking on the column headings within that report to sort it. The other thing you can do is, the table view might be, I'm going to flip back to our Google Analytics here for 1 second. So this table view is great. Geez, I don't know how this is going to look, but they have a bunch of other views on here. So it may be that a table plus some graphical data is beneficial. It might be that bar graphs versus pie graphs are more effective. And then there's another graphical tool here, which is the under and over data, which is also very, very handy. So as you're kind of going through this report, just think about, what is the best way to visualize that data? It's fairly limited here in the sort of out of the box reports. I usually stay with the table data. And then if I need to graph that, I will create a custom report, which is what we're going to talk about next. So, yep, did that. Focus on the data, get rid of the cruft, sort by what matters. And then we talked about how do you generate a report, so you can just simply download that report as a PDF document, and then you can pop it in the email, set up a calendar invite with your boss to talk about it. I always find sending a report cold doesn't usually get the attention it needs, so put it in a calendar invite and set up a time to chat with them about it. And again, share the context around it. It's super important to have the context. Right. So let's talk about custom reports and dashboards. This is kind of taking the reporting up to the next level. Again, the out-of-the-box reports tell a story, but custom reports let you tell your story. So you can put together the kinds of data into one space that meet the needs of your stakeholders, whether that's your marketing team for optimizing campaigns, or put together your reports for your senior leadership team on marketing performance. And rather than having to export a whole bunch of different PDFs, those standard out-of-the-box PDFs, the custom reports and dashboards let you create your own story from that. So let's say your boss says we need a monthly snapshot of how our marketing efforts are generating website engagement. Again, this is just a hypothetical, simple example that we'll use to kind of create that. So what are the parts and pieces that might be interesting in that? So they're talking about website engagement. and your marketing efforts. So website engagement could be things like, how many sessions and what's the on-site engagement for those sessions. It might be interesting to kind of look at that from the standpoint of, for new versus returning visitors. Maybe your campaigns are designed to attract new prospects to your website, and you want to contrast that against, how many times they come back to explore your products more. Maybe you're campaigning in different geographies, or you have an organization that has a global footprint, and so you want to see what that looks like by geography. A lot of organizations operate within a bubble. Are you getting strong results within that bubble? Are some of the things you're doing helping you to break out of that bubble and get traffic from other areas, geographic areas? Maybe you want to contrast your campaign versus non-campaign traffic and engagement, and just also maybe how your paid traffic versus your organic traffic and engagement is going. A lot of organizations invest a great deal of money in SEO efforts, and they want to contrast their SEO and their SEM efforts. So you could add that to the storytelling as well. And then lastly, I just want to touch on importing and customizing imports from the gallery. The gallery is a resource that Google has created by the community, the analytics community. And there are just tons of fantastic, not just reports, but also all the components that would go into making those reports. So custom segmentations, all the assets that you need to build and tell stories. So you may not have to go to the effort of building out your own dashboard. Check out the gallery and see if there's something that's close. Again, they're incredibly smart people, analytics professionals who have created great reports and all the underlying data for that, and just really made that available to you for free. And like I said, once they're in your instance, you can tweak them, you can customize them as needed. So this would be an example of the start of a custom report, and it's kind of hard to see here, but on the top left, you've got your new and returning visitors. You've got the number to the right of that. You've got a table with sessions and campaigns, a little geographic map of where that traffic's coming from, and then goals through different conversion campaigns. So let's dive in and just take a quick look at how to get started creating your own custom reports. Just hide that. And so let's start here at dashboards. To create a dashboard, you just simply hit the create button and you choose a blank. Let's start by choosing a blank canvas. So let's name our dashboard Boss Campaign Insights. Oh, no, not Insights. Report. Why not Insights? Insights are derived from the report, so I hesitate to call these Insights. You need to add some color to it to be Insights. So let's create our dashboard. And let's start off by adding, so dashboards are basically created as a series of widgets. And the widgets have different formats. They break down into, these are your standard widgets, which take all your historical reporting. But there's also these real-time widgets, which are great if you want to create something that's that you can put up on like a monitor during a campaign, so you can see how things are happening on your site right now. So we're going to just create a standard one here, and let's go with sessions by visitor type. What would be a good way to do this? So it's basically new and returning visitors. So I think I want to visualize that using a pie chart. So I'll just select pie, and then the interface here changes to show me what the options are in that pie. So the first thing I want to do is a metric, and I want sessions. So I just choose sessions here. And I want to dimensionalize that by visitor type. Actually, it's called user type. So dimensionalized by user type. Now, I know there's only 2 user types here, so you can limit how many slices of data it shows, which is a good thing to do if you have a lot of data. If you have a lot of data, I actually don't recommend using the pie chart, but this is a good tool to limit slices. Now, I only have 2 slices, so I'm also going to use a donut because I love donuts. So let's save that. And, oh, you know what? I remember we have our dimensions, which is handy. Our dimensions set here to be a year-by-year comparison. So if we wanted that, we could leave that set. And our first widget here is going to show what our sessions by visitor are year over year. So we can see last year we had more returning as a percentage than we do this year. But you know what? I really just want it for last month. So I'm going to remove the comparison. There, we've got the first widget of our custom report. Now, I'm also interested in where those visitors are coming from, so I'm going to add geography to that. Now, I still want sessions, but I just want to see those sessions now by geography. So I could either create a new widget, or one of the handy features is if you've got some of the work done already in a widget, you can simply click the widget, clone the widget, which will create a version of it, and then edit the widget. So in this case, what I would like, I think would be handy because it's fairly high level data. I'm going to use a geomap. Now you can see in the geomap there's some ways to display the actual regions here. So let's choose our dimension here. I think I want to do, let's go by country. And you know what, let's start with world and see what that looks like. We don't do a lot of business. Let's say, for example, we don't do a lot of business outside a specific continent. Or maybe I want to create regional representations of a specific continent here. But let's start here and see what this looks like. So I'll save this widget. And now you have your sessions by visitor type from around the world. This is, so what we have here is 3 columns. It looks like 3 columns. I want to change this so that there's more emphasis on the right-hand column. So if you click Customize Dashboard here, you can change the layout of this. If you need more columns of data and they're all kind of equally important, you can do this where you get a quarter of the page real estate devoted to each one. You can do half and half. But I tend to find that some information is more important than others and needs more emphasis. So I like the 30/70 split views, and I use the left-hand right split view quite often. So that's a way to kind of go through and create emphasis on certain types of information. I'm also interested in our campaigns. So I'd like to know what campaigns are driving our traffic. So we're going to go ahead and add another widget. I'm going to start with it. Just name this campaigns. Let's call it campaign performance. I'm going to make it a table. The dimension we're going to use is campaign. And I think the first metric we'll use is sessions, since we're all about sessions right now. So sessions. I might also add, I'm going to add bounce rate. Because it would be interesting to see if, you know, some campaigns are generating higher or lower bounce rates. I'm not a huge fan of bounce rates. I don't know how you guys feel about bounce rates. I'd love you to add some things in the comments about bounce rate. Site-wide bounce rate is a handy, I think it's a handy benchmark to just judge the overall performance of how your site is doing. At an individual page level, I find it more problematic because different things can contribute to bounce rate, and it's not necessarily, for example, if you've got a video at the top of your page that's, you know, quite long, and someone watches the whole video, they might not have taken any action on your page, but they watched the whole video. So that page could show as a bounce when really they were very engaged with the content. So you need to be able to put something in the video that sends an event into Google Analytics to cancel out the bounce rate. Not a lot of people do that. So like I said, I think bounce rate has to be used and interpreted judiciously for that. But I'm really interested in how you guys are using bounce rate, or the relative importance for you for bounce rates. Okay, yada, yada, yada. Let's create this. So as before, you can see that we have our campaigns in here, how much traffic they're driving and what the bounce rate is. And you know what? We have that bit of cruft in there again. So just like we did before, we can filter out that cruft. I don't really want people to see that. So I'm going to add a filter here, and I'm going to say, don't show campaigns. Hello, campaigns containing not set. I use that not set filter a lot. Don't show campaigns containing not set. All right, we'll save that. Awesome. Now we're starting to build out a bit of a story here. And you can see what I'm doing is I'm combining data, metrics from the different areas within Google Analytics into one view. So again, this is where you can start to build out and create your own version of a story by combining elements of data. So it's very, very handy. I'm not going to go too much farther into that. There are just basically any data that you can extract through Google Analytics, you can place onto these dashboards. But I want to just check, let's check back here and see if we've got any questions. Whoops. No questions. Come on, you guys. Okay, so we've gone ahead and created a dashboard, and we've created our little 3-minute reports. I want to talk a little bit about, now that you're able to do this, rather than spending a tremendous amount of time creating those dashboards, I talked a little bit about being able to use the gallery. So let's take a look at the gallery and how we can bring dashboards that other people have created for very common things like campaign performance or website performance into our analytics, and then show you how you can fine-tune those or customize those for your own needs as well. So let's head back over to the slides here. So I'm just going to zoom back out here to dashboards, and I'm going to create. But you know what? Before I do that, I want to mention Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. When you get familiar with even dashboards, you'll find that they're pretty static. Uh, there are great opportunities to be able to drill into information, and you can create a bit of that within these reports as well. But once you sort of become a reporting ninja, I definitely encourage you to check out Google Data Studio, as they've kind of mentioned here. Google Data Studio is a standalone data visualization tool. It's free to use, and it's very, very easy to connect it to your Google Analytics account to be able to begin to visualize in an interactive way the data that is in Google Analytics. I'm not going to go into too much of it here, but the other super valuable thing about it is it allows you to combine data now from other sources as well. So not only your ad data and your Google Analytics data, but you can pull in data through different tools from things like Facebook engagement, LinkedIn, all these other elements of your marketing ecosystem can now be sort of rolled up into one data visualization, and then you can provide access to that to your stakeholders. So they get a live view of the data. And then you can create the widgets inside that so that you can, for example, if you had a campaign dashboard, you could click a campaign and then it would drill down into and visualize these sources and mediums, the channels, and then the sources and mediums within that. So it's a great way to create things to explore data further. A little bit down the road, I'm probably going to do a webinar on that as well. So stay tuned to my channel for that. And then, like I said, it's also a great way to bring in data from other places. So let's go back to the gallery. So when you hit the create button, it gives you a couple of options down here. You can create a dashboard, or you can import a dashboard from the gallery. And actually, I am going to just do this again because I'm using Safari here, and I think Google prefers you to use Chrome for some reason. I don't know why, but I think they do. So I'll click import from gallery, and you can see what it's done here is it's kind of loaded into this window, this gallery. Now, I have all kinds of problems with it working inside this window, so I always click this link here saying go to gallery, which basically opens the gallery up in a completely new window. So this is the gallery, and there is just so much here. I would say if you're starting to create custom reports, I think as a practice, learn how to do it by just creating some of your own. But before you go crazy and start to create a huge dashboard, you may want to take a look at some of the resources that are available within this gallery. Again, they're created by some of the most the smartest analytics professionals. Some of these top contributors here. Justin, if you don't follow Justin and you're a bit of an analytics nerd, he is fantastic, talks about analytics, advanced tag manager, super guy. Avanish, I believe, works for Google. I listened to his blog. He is a fantastic person to talk not just about analytics, but the interpretation of analytics and what it means and how to tell stories and how to motivate people who are maybe not predisposed analytically to do different things. He's kind of an analytics philosopher to some extent. So let's just dive in and take a look at. So he has this analytics model called Occam's Razor, and you can find it on his blog, which I will put a link to. If you download the slides, I'll put a link to all these resources and to Avendish's blog because it's just fantastic, and a link to Justin as well. But this dashboard is a great way to get started at different views of the data, and to install any of these, you simply just click the import button. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll just click import. And what it will do is it's going to ask you, oh, permission denied. That's harsh. Okay, I'm going to just change So you can go down to my own profile here. I might have already installed this in mine, so let's give this a go again. Import. Oh, permission denied. I wonder if that's because I already have it. Let's try a different one. Content analysis dashboard. Let's try that. Oh, permission denied. I have no idea what I'm doing wrong here. I often import these. Clearly, I have something set up here that's not going to let me do that. I apologize for that, but I do have one. I can show you one of the custom dashboards. Let's go back over here. Oh, this is very strange. I'm not getting my dashboard. I'm going to just quickly log out and log back in again. We'll just come back to me for this part. Like I say, I do apologize for this. The great thing about doing live demos, I'll just cut back to our screen here. All right. So let's just see if I have this already installed. So Occam's has these two reports built into it. As well, like I said, there are a number of other assets that are installed when you install these dashboards. You can find those in your admin under shared assets. So when you import these, it will actually take you to this page and will list out all of these shared assets that are created. And those assets can be things like the actual dashboards themselves, a set of custom reports. They could also include specific segments that they use to segment their reports. So all of that loveliness is transferred over to your account when you use those, when you use the gallery dashboards. So I'm just going to hop out of admin here, go back to dashboards. So let's take a look at the site performance dashboard. Again, I did not create this dashboard. I simply just brought it in. And I'm going to change my date range here, make it a bit more interesting. I don't get a ton of traffic to my site. Now, this dashboard is geared around site performance, which is incredibly important for things like search engine optimization. You want to make sure your page load times are fast. You want to have a sense of who's coming from what browsers, so that if you're doing content development or adding things to your pages, you're making sure they're friendly for those browsers. And yeah, so you can just see all of this information that's available in this report that I imported from the gallery. Now, to customize this, let's say domain lookup by country. That's interesting. What if I wanted to change that, or I wanted to create a version of that, and what I want to do is domain lookup within Canada. I have no idea what that looks like, but let's have a look at it and see what it does. So I'm going to say domain lookup for Canada. Oh, I'm sorry, I want to clone that widget. I don't want to change it. Let's clone it first. And I want to go to the region level. Heck, you know what? Let's go to the city level. It used to be within Google Analytics in the domain report. If companies had labeled their network infrastructure with their company name, you could actually see the companies that were coming to your website, which was super handy for account-based marketing or for outbound calling for sales teams. I don't think you can do that anymore. There are a bunch of third-party tools that you can add to your analytics to be able to do that are super, super helpful. And we do those for our clients. A lot of times they're handy if you're doing campaigning and you want to see if people are visiting companies' accounts are visiting your site, but maybe they're not clicking through the contact form yet. May not be ready to buy, but you want to validate that your expensive ABM campaigns are actually driving traffic to your site. You can do that. You can also send notifications to sales teams that a company visited your site, correlated to when you sent out your ABM campaign, and then maybe you can trigger like a friendly sales call or something like that. The other way to do that is to use the companies that are coming to your site and then use a data tool to find who the target prospects would be at that company from that city that they came from, and use that to trigger your ABM campaign. So some really, really good insight here. So that's why I've kind of picked city, or I want to see what city they're coming from. Let's just save that. I live in Waterloo, Ontario, so it's not surprising that, by city, a lot of them are coming from Waterloo. Quincy. So these are all mostly in my area. I don't know where this is, but I'm going to look that up after and find out where they're coming from. So again, just a very quick example of how you can take one of the gallery dashboards and you can bring that into your own Google Analytics rather than going to the effort of, it's great to do if you want to learn how to create dashboards. But once you've done that, you can save yourself a ton of time, and you can leverage the deep, deep understanding that others have in analytics and how Google Analytics works. And you can find their dashboards that they push up to the gallery for free. And honestly, it's such a valuable contribution that the community makes. You can bring those in and delete widgets if they're not relevant to you. You can customize, you can clone and customize your own widgets, or you can customize the existing widgets, and you can make it exactly the gallery that you, the dashboard that you need. The last thing I want to touch on is, I'm just going to hop back to my slides for a second. Have you seen Office Space? This is one of my favorite. So reports, once you start, reports are a double-edged sword. Once you start creating reports and putting some color to them and doing some interpretation, it's not like people go, okay, we're done, no more reports. It will be really, really beneficial, and people will start asking you for more and more reports. So like I said, you wear a lot of hats. You're probably doing a lot of things. So there are some things you can do within Google Analytics to automate reporting. And it's mostly on delivering reports by email. It doesn't really allow you to add color to them, but you may do like a weekly report and then have a monthly meeting to kind of review and add interpretation to those reports. So rather than having to create the PDF, put it in the email, and send it out every week, there are some good tools within it that you can just automate that. So we'll talk about that. The other thing I wanted to talk about is there is a triggered notification that you can do from Google Analytics. So if you had, for example, a threshold of goal conversions you were trying to hit, over a course of a week, and you wanted to celebrate that, but you didn't want to necessarily have to monitor Google Analytics all the time, you can set up triggered alerts for a whole bunch of criteria that basically notify you and your team members or your boss when you achieve those milestones. So those are two automation features that I want to talk a little bit about, and I'm just going to switch back over to the slides here, and we'll take a look at those. So I'm going to start off by using the site performance dashboard. This would be a really handy dashboard for the website team to know, because we're working so hard on search engine optimization. We're creating all kinds of great content for the site. We're putting a lot of effort into keywords and making sure our pages our landing pages respond to the right keywords. want to ensure that the site performance isn't sort of counteracting any of those great efforts. So, this would be a really handy report for our web team to have so that they can take a look and see if there are things that they can do to optimize the site, for example. Completely making that up. It may not be a good use of, let's just go with that and say that's what it is. So if I wanted to give this to them every week, certainly I could do an export and I could create a PDF and then send it to them and then get their out of office and then have to resend it to them. And anyway, the easy way to do that is just click the email tab, put in who you want this to go to. Call it whatever you want. This is the subject line of the email. So, hey, Norm, look at this. Maybe don't use that as a subject line. You can send it once, or this is the automation part of it that I just love. You can say, I want to send this every week. I think it's great weekend reading, so I want to send it to them on Friday. We're running, I think probably 6 months is fine. Maybe 3 months. If they can't get the site performance stuff together in 3 months, then we've got a problem. So let's say we're going to send this for 3 months. Let's say, hi Norm, hope happy Friday. Here is how the site is performing. I don't probably have to narrate the whole email here for you online. I'm not a robot. And then send. It's going to respect the date ranges that you chose. So if you said, I want to do a monthly report, probably want to send that every month. But if you had a date range here that was a weekly, so let's choose last week, apply. That's more appropriate for a weekly report. I would probably now go in and delete that action and then create a new one. Say, here's your weekly report. And then it's not always going to show it for the 14th or the 20th. Every time it sends it, it's going to go back and just do it for the previous week. So completely just automates that process of taking a weekly report and sending it. And you could do that with pretty much anything. You can do that with saved reports. If you remember in our, go back up here in our demo account, we made this bosses campaign. That was the really quick and dirty 3-minute hard-boiled egg, soft-boiled egg. You can do the same thing here. If you want that, you can simply share and then put your boss's name in here and say, I want this to go to the boss weekly. And rather than putting in a calendar invite, maybe, every month you might circle back with your boss and just say, hey, can we go over those weekly reports I've been sending you and talk about, how our campaigns are performing. I'd like some more budget to try this or try that. So that's handy. The last thing, I mentioned triggers. And now that I say that, I can't remember exactly where triggers are. Here they are. They're called custom alerts, and you set them up right here. I don't know if Google's going to let me do this in their account. You just say new alert, and we'll call this visitor peak alert. Let's say over a week, what we want to do is for all our traffic sessions, let's say we have more than 10,000 sessions. Maybe that happens every day on that site. I know it doesn't happen that way on my site that quickly. So you just say save alert and boom. For the email addresses that are subscribed to that, they're going to get the alert that says this happened. And that's a great way of, and you can do that for a bunch of things. If you have pages that all of a sudden start taking long times to load and you want to notify your web team that all of a sudden, for some reason, you've got a bunch of pages on your site that are taking 6 seconds to load and you're relying on those pages for SEO efforts, you may want to trigger an alert to them for that. So those are a couple of the automation features that are super handy to have. Let's go back to the last page. So that's it for fun with reports. I hope that was helpful. I think we're just a little bit over our time. You know what? I will quickly just see if there's any questions that have been posted. You guys have been pretty quiet. I'm going to just refresh. Yep, no questions. So thanks everybody for joining me for this. I hope you find this helpful. If you subscribe to this through the Eventbrite, I have your contact information and I will send you out a link with a replay of this webinar and a link to the slide deck as well. If you happen to catch this through our social media posts and you'd like that link as well, just DM me through either the Twitter or the LinkedIn link, and I'll send you this, send you the link to the resource page as well. Anyway, I hope that was really helpful, and I hope you have a great day. Talk to you later.